Okay, so here we are with the fork model. Let's go ahead and get this finished up. First thing I'm going to do is go into the edge subobject level and select this middle edge, and I'm going to get rid of it. Let's make sure it's looping, select the whole edge, and I'm going to use one of the new graphite modeling tools. In the loops section there's a new remove loop option. Now in previous versions of Max there was a remove option. This does not work very well. You'll notice, let's go ahead and use that. When we go back into the vertex subobject level, it has left these stranded vertices here in the middle of these edges, and that's going to cause problems later on. So let's undo, back in edge mode. Loops remove loop tool works really well. Now when we check it, you'll see the geometry is nice and clean. So let's continue adding some detail to this. You'll notice the profile of the handle here is nice and rounded. Let's use another tool in the edge subobject level. In loops, let's go to loop tools, again using the graphite modeling tools. Now this is a nice new feature. I kind of like how this works. We're going to actually, it references vertice heights when using the loop tools, and I'll show you how that works. Go ahead and select some vertices along here. I'm selecting the middle two vertices, and that rounded part continues down. We'll make that our last selection. Now I'm going to bring these up, move tool in the Z direction, to the height that I think this should be. Now it's not going to look exactly like this when it's finished. What I want to do is guess the approximate curve that I'd like to see from the base of this bottom vertice to the top of these two vertices here. Now when we go back in to edge mode, let's just go ahead and select these. I'm selecting all the edges that were in between those two vertices that we raised in the Z direction. Looks like we got them all. Now make sure auto loop is selected. That'll just finish the loops. And make sure space loop is selected. It's not completely critical, but it'll space these out evenly along this curve that we're going to create. And now when we click on the curve button, you'll notice it actually sets a curve, and it sets it using the vertice heights that we set earlier. So that's kind of a nice new feature. You know, use the same tool again down here, and it still curves up a little bit towards the end here. So bring that up. Now you go back into edge mode again, select the edge loop you'd like to curve, make sure auto loop is selected, hit curve, and it will curve that for you. So another feature I'd like to incorporate is this spine that runs down the middle. As the handle begins to flatten out, it still has some character to it because it's got this spine feature. So let's try and build that into our model. Select these vertices. And then, yep, I think that'll be good. Let's lift those up. Now this time we're not going to curve these. I'm going to scale those in, bring them a little closer to each other. A little bit more actually. It's actually a fairly tight spine, and then the curve gets more and more gradual as it breaks away from the center of the fork. So let's see how that looks. And we're going to add some smoothing later on, but I think that's a good start. And again, you can choose to spend as much or as little time as you would like in getting these to look the way you want them to look. I'm going to move those in just a little bit more. Moving on down towards the bottom of the handle, I've got the spine close enough for now. We can make fine adjustments later on when we add a turbo smooth modifier and see how that comes out exactly. And down here I'm going to select these edges. Let's add another edge and slide that down. Okay, now I'm going to get this out of the way. We're done with that for now. Loop that, and let's do this in vertex sub-object level. You know what? I still need that edge there. Let's hold off on that. Let's add some thickness to the model first, and I'm going to add a shell modifier. And this is basically an extrude modifier that works along a 3D plane instead of just along a spline. So I'll lower that, give it a little more proportion to what a fork would look like. Now you have to be careful with the shell modifier, because since we have this radius, you know, this concave radius right here, if we were to add the shell modifier to the other side, it would be possible for it to intersect itself, but actually looking at it, that doesn't even seem to be an issue, so either side should work. I'll go ahead and extrude it up off the top. I think I had it at 0.06 inches, and that'll work just fine. Let's see what we've got. So I want to give this a little more depth here. So on top of this shell modifier, you know, let's see if we can. Before I do that, you know what? I was going to do something. I think that'll still work though. Let's go ahead and convert this to. You know, I'm just going to add a modifier instead of converting it. I might want to back up later on. Can't quite make up my mind at this point. We'll see how this works. We may need to try something else. Yeah, I'm just going to give this just a little bit more height here, and that doesn't make a big difference. Now we'll try our edit poly modifier. Let's find a good way to represent this. I'll make sure ignore back facing is turned off. I'm going to select some vertices here. Let's find a good way to represent the decorative curve here at the bottom of the fork. Bring these vertices. You know, I don't want to bring those ones up. So I deselected the middle ones. Let's bring the other ones up and deselect the outside ones. Bring these ones up. And let's add a turbo smooth modifier. Start to see how this is going to smooth for our final version. Okay, turn that off and exit out of vertex of object level. Okay, so we need to add some control edges in. We're getting a lot more rounded shape here than I would like to see up here as well. Let's go in and do a little bit of that. See if we can start to get this cleaned up and finalized.